All right, well, we are at 2:03 and I want to respect the time that we have of Jill Lippincott today. So I'm going to introduce Jill here real quick, and then I will hand it on over to her to get started. Again, use that chat function over there. And Jill said she would take questions throughout, so you can either drop those in the chat or feel free to come on screen and ask your question. Jill is a team lead for innovation and workforce team at IEDA. She is a liaison for Iowa Innovation Council, a think tank of Iowa leaders that recommend public policy strategies to support innovation initiatives in bioscience, IT, and advanced manufacturing. IEDA's Innovation and Workforce team also connects entrepreneurs with innovation funding and small business owners with resources, education materials, workforce training programs, apprenticeship programming, and internships. Through the Targeted Small Business Program, IEDA certifies businesses that are 51% or more owned by women, minorities, individuals with disabilities, and service-disabled veterans that helps them leverage their certificate through greatest business opportunities. And if you joined us last week, the majority of the speakers we had are TSBs and talked about that certification. So Jill, I'm excited to hand it over to you, and away we go. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Great, thank you so much, Christina. I am going to share my screen, and I am hopeful that once I do that, you can start seeing my presentation. Let me know if we're good to go. All right, wonderful. Well, thank you, Christina, and thank you for those that have joined us. I'm very excited to be here today to talk about the Targeted Small Business Program a little bit more in depth, and going really into what it means to get certified, what it means to become certified, and how you can leverage that, and some of the things that our businesses do with their certification, as well as how this certification really can be a connector to you to other opportunities. So as Christina mentioned, please feel free to put notes in the chat. If I am just talking away and I'm not seeing them, I gave Christina permission to interrupt me. And I would love to see you if you're able to come online and want to ask your question. And if we can talk through it in our conversation today, we'll absolutely do so. Otherwise, we can always take it offline too. So this is really up to you and where you want to take it, but I'm going to cover about the program, the access that businesses have when they become certified. We're going to go behind the scenes in the TSB portal. We're going to look at the application itself. What does that actually look like? Because there's not a lot of questions we ask, but it's not as hard as it might seem. Christina is a TSB owner herself as well, so she can tell you. And hopefully, yes, everybody on the meeting last week was also sharing that. And then what do we do? How can you leverage your profile? How can you stand out, and the different ways that you can use that? So we'll cover that, but again, please feel free to ask questions so that this is beneficial for you and it goes in the direction you'd like it to. So I always like to start out to give a little bit of background about me. I actually grew up the daughter of an entrepreneur. That is my mom, who wove things with big giant looms, spun her own thread. I mean, she was like an original manufacturer plus crafter plus designer all in one. And so this was her being featured in a magazine. This looks really glamorous, but actually this is what it looked like in reality. Me dressing up in old costumes because we were actually housed at what would be similar to Living History Farms here in Des Moines in Nebraska. And so I always share this because it was this beautiful magazine spread showing my mom, but the reality was, as you can see, my friends were very comfortable during their summers. I was wearing wool stockings and a bonnet, and I think literally putting in the sweat behind the work. So while I've not been a business owner myself, I come from a family of business owners, and I remember stuffing envelopes by hand because that's what we did before social media and marketing was officially a thing. And you mailed out the envelopes, and then people mailed their orders back. And to this day, it amazes me that business got done that way. But now, with the programs like the Targeted Small Business Program, my mom would have been somebody who's eligible to have a bit of a leg up. And that's exactly what the Targeted Small Business Program is for. So the TSB is an acronym you'll hear me use, is for businesses that are at least 51% owned, operated, and managed by individuals who are one of the 4 targeted group persons, or TGP. Again, we like our acronyms here at the state, of groups. So women, individuals with minority status, service disabled veterans, or individuals with a disability. So just 51% owned, which means that the business can have more than one owner. We ask that there be a 51% threshold of ownership by one of those 4 groups. And it could be that maybe there's 4 owners, 2 of them are women, 2 of them are men, for instance, and the 2 women make up 60% of the ownership together. That's fine. It doesn't have to be 51% all held with one owner, but as long as 2 women together hold at least 51% or more of that ownership, we would consider that a targeted small business. The business also has to be located in Iowa. So we get questions a lot about businesses that are located outside of Iowa who want to take advantage of being recognized as a women-owned business or a veteran-owned business when doing business with the state. And your legislators have said this is really a program that we want to reserve for businesses that are located here. We want the money to stay in Iowa. And so businesses have to be headquartered in Iowa, which means also it's not just enough just to have a location here. The business has to be headquartered here. And we know that by looking at your tax documents. So that's a question that I get a lot of. Well, I'm women owned. Clearly, why do you need my tax documents when you're doing the certification? And we'll talk about that. But that is one of the elements that we look for, is where is the business headquartered? And you also have to be operating for a profit, not a profit. Doesn't mean you're making a profit, just means that you're earning revenue as a for-profit entity, not a nonprofit. Now, there's certainly business models where you can be a for-profit business and you can carve off some of your revenues to nonprofits and contribute that way. That is fine. That doesn't get in the way of us certifying you, as long as you're recognized as a for-profit entity with the Secretary of State. So that's what we use to verify that status. And you must be a small business. So when we talk small, this is kind of generally what is recognized as a small business: an annual gross income of $4 million or less, computed as an average of the 3 preceding fiscal years. That number seems sometimes astronomical, I know, but almost every year when businesses go to renew, because they renew their certification every 2 years, I do have people that we send a letter to where we say, unfortunately, but fortunately, you're no longer qualified for this program. Congratulations, actually, because we had one coffee shop, for example, that started out with one location, and in a number of years, they'd expanded to multiple locations and no longer were considered small. So that's how those parameters are set in code. These aren't things that we can choose to change if we really like a business, which sometimes we do. And if this is kind of your structure and you fit this, we would love to have you in the program. But these are the things that are definite in code that we have to go by. So before we even get into how to become certified, I always try to go through the why, because I think it's important that you know what the program is about. I get a lot of people who will say, well, somebody told me I should get certified, but I don't really know what I should do with it. And so realize that we should talk more about why you should become certified, which is exactly why I'm grateful that Christina invited us to talk here today. So businesses become certified for a number of reasons, and they may be all of the reasons, or it may be just one. But a couple of things that we'll be talking about today. One, you're listed in our online database. So you are searchable, and with that database online, anybody can access it. So whether that's a state buyer or somebody who is looking to do business with women business owners in their local community, they can find you. And I know sometimes it's easy to kind of think, well, there's Google. I mean, I can search for women-owned businesses. Why would I go here? Well, our state buyers are specifically directed to use this directory because they know that the only businesses that are in it are those that are certified. And when they are working to meet their targeted small business goals, this is where they go to find those businesses first. And it's not enough to kind of be in it and then not renew. You're required to renew every 2 years. I will tell you what just happened last week was a business almost missed out on a state procurement opportunity because they had been in the directory. Their renewal date was at the end of the month. And when you're past your renewal date, the directory will automatically take you out. You're still in our system, so you could still renew and we put you back in there, but they couldn't be found. And I got an email from a state buyer saying, just last week, I found this company that we were looking to do some business with, and now I can't find them. What happened? So I explained, well, they're still kind of here, but they didn't renew. And so we would need to get them renewed. And so they actually reached out to the company, explained, we'd love to work with you, but you need to renew your certification. So we got them certified. I think the contract did go through and that worked for everybody, but we see a lot of that where you get certified and you don't have to think about it for 2 years, and then you don't do the renewal, and then somebody you've been doing business with can't find you. So again, don't underestimate the value of being found in that directory. The other thing that we often offer, I will say often because we did have a networking event that we were planning for later this month, and we just pulled it because of various reasons, not one of them being that we didn't have a conference room built out like we thought we would have. But we do usually offer networking events. Networking could be anywhere between an educational opportunity, networking with other businesses in the TSB program, or networking with business resource providers. So those are things that we try to create as a value add to the program. We've done virtual during the pandemic when many businesses were closed, just so that you can stay connected and not feel like you're on an island, which I know sometimes business ownership can very much feel like. So we have a network of over 900 businesses in our program, and it struck us that these businesses are all experts at what they're doing and they are running a business. Let's share that information out. So we will be bringing that program back around once we have the space and location to be able to do so. Again, I talk a lot about resources because we see ourselves really as connectors, whether it's resources that we can provide through Iowa SourceLink, which is a site that we manage here at IEDA, or connecting you to folks like Christina or an SBDC where you can get some business guidance. A lot of what we do is actually connections to other people or business resources. Sometimes that's before you get certified. Sometimes that's after. We become pretty familiar with your business, and we're okay being the person that you trust if you have questions, and we can do some of those warm introductions to other people for you. We also have a loan program. The loan program has been around for a number of years, but it did just go through a transition where we are now managing the loans here at IEDA in-house. In fact, Kim Stevenson, I should say, may be on the line here with us. I didn't offer to put her on screen because it's literally her, I think, third or fourth day of work. There she is. Yes. Hi, Kim. I honestly didn't want to put you on the spot, but thank you for joining us. Kim is our new TSB Business Development, aka Loan Manager. And like I said, it's like her third day. So welcome. So Kim and I will be, and really Kim, will be responding to inquiries about the loans. We do have a process that we ask you to fill out a pre-loan application so we can get to know you and your business. Kim will reach out to you, understand kind of where you're at a little bit more. And then from there, might direct you to a resource if you need a few things to put together before you apply for the loan, or would push you through the loan application process itself. So we're excited that we're kind of managing that all under one roof again. And we are already hearing some great stories about businesses and their goals and what they're hoping to do for growth. So yeah, it is here. If you have any questions, we can also share in the chat our contact information. We have TSB loan at iowaeda.com and TSB cert for the certification. Kim, anything to add?
Nope, I think you covered it all.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for being brave and coming on camera with absolutely no preparedness. And then finally, there's the social aspect. So we do like to help promote our business's achievements. Now, we can't promote your products or services, but we can promote your stories. And that's a lot of what we do at IEDA, is just telling the stories of Iowa business owners, who they are, where have they come from, and how did they grow their business? What was their inspiration? How are they giving back to their communities? Those are the types of things that you'll see often in our newsletters. You'll see in some of our marketing campaigns. And we really like to get to know you through the certification and the loan process so that when I'm asked, sometimes by legislators, sometimes by media, sometimes we're writing talking points for presentations for leadership, and they'll say, what's a really great story that we can share about a small business owner that you've heard recently? We like to be able to have those ready. So we like to get to know you and build relationship with you. So I'll go through quickly some slides on all of that, but I always like to start out with this big number, back to that big search page, the whole spiel I gave on the search. This big number is the one I always like to kind of put out there, because this is not just the amount of money that the state of Iowa spent on goods and services in FY20. This is the amount of money that the state of Iowa spent on goods and services just from targeted small businesses in FY20. So that was back when there were still only about 450, 500 businesses in our directory. So there is some capital to be had in this program. It is a matter of getting in the program, being found, being connected. And I think businesses that are first getting certified, so you're in the directory, then learning how to make the connections, utilize the portal, use the resources, and take the little steps one at a time to do all of that kind of work are the ones that are finding access to these dollars. So we are also on our side advocating for our TSB program. We are talking with buyers on the state side all the time to just make sure they're looking at the directory first, and trying to encourage members to just build relationship and even get connected, even if they aren't interested in buying anything at that point from a TSB. Helping them be aware of what our TSBs do is a part of our role. I actually did have a really good email from one of our TSBs this last week, and she was kind of telling me how she had engaged with some work with one of our state agencies. And she had said, hey, this individual didn't have awareness about the TSB program. So I gave them some background. So mental note for me to follow up with that agency and say, hey, so how can we help you? And that's where we always like to come from, is a place of support, both for the buyers and for you as targeted small businesses. One of the ways we've done that is to increase the threshold of purchasing directly from businesses for TSB specifically. So when the state wants to go buy something, they can buy whatever they want. If it's under $5,000, they don't have to put a bid out. But if they are looking to buy something that is above that threshold, they do have to put out what's called a RFP, or sometimes an RFQ. Now, that was previously $10,000 for our targeted small businesses. That threshold meant that somebody can purchase something directly from a business if they were a TSB for a little bit higher amount, which was great. But when we looked at that, we really said, we literally looked at the numbers of how purchases were made and what was being purchased across all purchases, and didn't see a lot of extra purchasing going to our TSBs under that $10,000 mark. So we worked with our state agency, Department of Administrative Services, to advocate for that to be increased. We actually had to go back to the legislature and ask them to increase that to $25,000. So now when our state buyers are needing to make purchases, rather than having to go through an RFQ or RFP situation, if it's under $25,000, they can work directly with a TSB, which means, and we're going to look at the whole buying portal and get into that, they can avoid all of that, which saves them time, and it saves you time because you're not, as a vendor, having to put together a whole bid response and a bid packet. What that does require, though, is for them to know about you. So it does require for you to build a relationship, help them understand who you are. Maybe it's sending them information about your business. Again, knowing that they might not need your product at that exact time, but at least you've started making that connection. And so we do have a series with our partner at CIRAS, CIRAS, a great partner who has folks there who can help people get into government contracting. And we host once a month series where we feature a state buyer talking about their general buying practices. Do they like to be emailed? Do they like cold calls? Maybe it's that you should send something to them in the mail, and that's how they prefer to get kind of cold calls out to them. But you're going to learn a little bit more about each of the state vendors and kind of what they generally buy, which is also nice because maybe Department of Health and Human Services does not need your dog bones if you make dog bones. But perhaps the Department of Corrections, for the facilities that they have and the canines they have at those facilities, might. So you get to learn a little bit about that at that monthly series. So just a bit of a plug for that. But that's kind of the things that I mean when I say, you start to put the pieces together. I'm never going to promise that state procurement is going to happen overnight, but these are the pieces that will help you get closer to being able to do it and just understand how to do it, because that's, I think, also part of the process. It's hard to understand even how to get into it sometimes. So we're all here to help to kind of peel that onion and get to know how to do it a little bit better. Like I said, this is the search site. We do have the ability to search off of a number of things. This is really more for our buyers who have said, it would be really great if I could search a tri-county area. So now they can select multiple counties to search from. Or it would be really great if I could see NAICS codes, or if you know state procurement, NIGP codes, which are the equivalent of NAICS codes at state procurement. Remember what I said when I said it was complicated. They don't make it easy necessarily. But again, we have various tools that can help you kind of navigate this, but this is how people will find you. So we're also going to talk today about how, once you become certified, to enhance your profile so that when you do become found, people know who you are and they know what kind of products and services you offer. I will tell you, there are so many times I get calls from people who will say, well, I looked at the directory and I used a keyword search and I couldn't find what I was looking for. And the keyword that they're using is probably one that makes sense to maybe a buyer, maybe isn't one that makes sense to the vendor because they've put in maybe some very technical language for what they do. And so sometimes what we are often called upon to do is some translation. And I'll tell them, you know what, let me search the site. I'll send you a list of folks who I might be able to do what you're looking for. And sometimes it's that keyword just wasn't in their business description, but I know because we get to know you pretty well that you might be able to provide that. So we try to do some of that too. I bring up primary source because I wanted to show that you can also load a logo. If they had a capability statement, it would be loaded here. A capability statement is like a resume if you've done business with the government. And again, the folks at Cirrus have a really great workshop on how to build a capability statement. You can also find templates online, but not a must-have. You don't have to have it to get certified. You don't have to have your logo loaded. But these are kind of the nice things that we're trying to help businesses utilize to present themselves to buyers. And in addition to our state buyers, we often have folks who are engaging in this for the supplier diversity side. And I know that's what really this focus has been for this series. And, on a supplier diversity side, we have a lot of companies that are starting more and more to engage in this as a part of their corporate social responsibility goals. They're reaching out to us. We've been featured, and Christina and her team have put together an excellent series with a nationwide speaker coaching businesses on doing more supplier diversity, how they can get started. It's just a little bit, I'm a little biased, but whenever I talk about this with other companies, I do encourage them to use the TSB directory when they're trying to source. So know again that database is going to be used by not just our state buyers, but by those businesses engaging in supplier diversity, because it is a way that they can find businesses. Not only that, but one of the things that we promote to those companies that are private companies, but wanting to do source from more diverse suppliers, is that as a part of our certification, we're also verifying, of course, the 51% threshold, but is the company insured? If they are a contractor, do they have a contractor's license? Those types of things come along with our certification. So we tend to see a lot of organizations, especially local, utilizing our certification because they know that's built into it. The city of Cedar Rapids, for example, Cedar Rapids as a city is not required to do TSB buying thresholds or requirements because that's city level versus state. But they have built in to their program, if an individual is a TSB and their bid is not the lowest, but it's within 2% of the lowest bid, that individual will win the bid instead for city work. But they've used the TSB program rather than trying to find another certification type of program. So we are seeing more and more companies, cities, counties, utilize the TSB program for that. So again, I'm biased, but I'm pushing the TSB certification because it is one that folks know that they can trust as our reviews aren't just a rubber stamp. We really do review the business before providing that certification. All right, so obviously this was pre-COVID, because I'm sure you're seeing this and thinking, oh my gosh, they're all standing very, very close to each other. But this is one of our networking events, another networking event here in Des Moines that we also held. Like I said, we help promote businesses and the awards that they've won on social. We help to also promote businesses in the media. We often get media requests. These examples to the right are our own newsletter. So we can't promote your businesses or your services or your products, but maybe you have won an award, maybe you've been selected for a special recognition, et cetera. We can highlight that. And often, again, we're trying to promote our own program and put media out there and connect our business owners to do media about the program also. So really just try to get a lot of people aware of the program, connected to what it is. We try to put our logo out there. This is the badge that businesses get once they get certified, and make that more recognizable. If you go down to Valley Junction today, I think there's 4 to 5 businesses that are certified. I'm hopeful that they would have this badge in their window, because when you get certified, you also get a window cling, and you can put that right on your window. So it is my goal to have some area of Iowa, some main street that has a number of women-owned businesses. We just walk down the street, we see that window cling in every storefront. So we'll get there. All right, I did a lot of talking, and I can see that there is some stuff in the chat. So just going to chat with this. Oh, thank you, Christina. So yes, just this week you had shared that as well. Yes, this program can be for brand new businesses. So there is no requirement that you have to be in business for a certain amount of time. There is the only requirement is that you have to be in business. So once you are in business, then you can become certified. And the reason why is so that once you're in the directory, you are able to be found and contacted in case somebody wants to do business with you. So we can certainly acknowledge that. And we're going to talk about, if you don't have business taxes, which is one of the things that we request, how else would you share some of your information? Any other questions before I move forward?
There's another question down there. It says, does TSB accomplish the same as being certified woman-owned, for example, through WBE and C, or would you recommend applying for both?
So I generally recommend applying for both if you think you're going to do national type of work, if you're going to work with larger companies. Sometimes they don't recognize the state level certification, and sometimes they do. I would start with the TSB though first. That would be, so if you're going to apply for both, start with TSB, because what is sometimes easier is to have our certificate and then ask the national level certifications to recognize your state, because it's a third party state certification. Also, it's free. And sometimes those other certifications charge to certify you. So start with ours first. It's, I think, an easier one to get and to start with, then try to leverage that so you don't have to go through all that paperwork again if you try to do a larger one. And if you're not going to do some of that larger national type of work, you may see if you even need it. But I would only recommend it if you're looking to do larger size contracts or maybe federal contracts. But most of the time, more and more often, we're seeing those state level certifications recognized by the other certifiers.
Okay, thank you. I have a question to ask.
Sure.
Okay, my name is Andrew Johnson from Des Moines area. The question I wanted to ask is like, because you talk about you have to have a partner within your business, and as a small business, sometime before you establish a small business, it's like you have to begin on your own. So for we that are having the interest, to be a part of the organization, and we are the only owner of the business, how can that, can that be certified?
Yeah, I'm sorry if there was any confusion. You don't have to have a partner. You can certainly be a sole proprietor. That 51% is just the threshold you have to get to by either one owner or combination of owners. So if you're 100% owner of your business, then you've met that threshold. So 51% is what we use. It's the standard that most certifications will use, because if there are multiple owners in the business, they'll say, okay, well, look at your share of ownership among your owners, make sure it gets to 51%. But if you're a sole proprietor just starting out, one owner, that too qualifies, and you can certainly become certified. We have a lot of sole proprietors in the business who, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, whether you're an LLC, sole proprietor, or corporation, we can certify you as long as you're in business and you've kind of kicked off and you're ready to do business with other entities.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Somebody had asked about any prior records. None of that is something that comes into play with this. In fact, we know that often returning after any prior record can be difficult to get employment. So that's exactly why this program exists. So that's not a barrier at all either. All right, well, I am going to move into my next slide, and then we're actually going to move into the database. But thank you for your questions, and Christina, feel free to stop me if you see more coming up. We're going to talk a little bit more about just navigating the site itself, the bid portal, and how to become certified. So give me a second as I try to share my screen here. Let me know if you're seeing that pulled over into the screen. Good. All right. So this is where we're going to send you if you're interested in becoming certified. And this is the short URL for it. I'm going to put it here in the chat, is iowaeda.com/TSB. And this is the sort of landing page for everything TSB. From here, you can look at the directory. So you can click into the directory like we just looked at in my slides. You can start an application to become certified, or you can log back in to your application if you don't finish it in one setting, or you can update your profile if you're already certified. Additionally, you can also click here to learn more about the loans. So I'm going to focus on the certification and the bid portal here for a second, but then we're going to come back and look at the loan page as well. This page also just has a lot of great information about benefits of becoming certified, a lot of the things that I covered, as well as link to state procurement information. If you ever wanted to know anything about state procurement, this page is really helpful. There's so much here, including bid opportunities. So even if you're not certified, but you wanted to know what the state of Iowa buys, go check out their current bidding opportunities. They're going to show you all the various places, because sometimes they're not even hosted all in one place, but you can look at the hosted bids up here and just search for dump trailer, debris monitoring service, 40-inch electrical stove, course development, program evaluation. So it's both services and products. I mean, and I cannot stress enough that we buy as a state, we buy so many things that you just never even think about. So really take a look at that. And honestly, I think every citizen should know where their tax dollars are going to. So I think it's always an interesting read. So back to the TSB site. Make this a little bigger here. So on this site, if you want to start an application, you're going to go to the TSB certification application. Now, the very first thing you're going to get is a pre-qualification survey. It's going to go over those 4 questions I covered at the very top of my presentation. Are you located in Iowa? And are you a for-profit business? Do you make less than $4 million annually? And does the business, or is the business more than 51% owned by one of the targeted group persons? And then you can select one of these categories. You do have to answer yes to all of these categories, and then you will have the opportunity to register at the bottom of the page. So when you register, you will be able to go to create a username and password. I would write this down because this is the username and password you're going to continue to use to either update your application or go back into view bids once you become certified. It's the exact same portal. You just get some extra tabs at the top that magically appear once you become certified. So I already have a login that I'm going to use my username here, if I can remember it. That's always the fun part too. Now you can see when I logged in, it took me to my business profile list. When you create your login, it's actually going to first take you to your account profile. And this is where you can update your password, update information, etc. If you ever need to change your password, you can also come here. Once you update this, it will take you to this page. Now, you're not going to have these because these are all my test accounts. Whenever I need to test to make sure that the database is working, I create a new one or I work on one. But what you will see over here to the right is new application, and that's what you're going to want to start. Once you become certified, you will have the ability to manage your application and you'll see it here. But until you create an application, you won't see anything listed here. So new application takes us to the first page of a 9-page application. Now, again, I know some folks say 9 tabs, that seems a lot. It really goes pretty quickly, and I'm going to walk you through all the things you have to fill out, the required parts, and some of the things that aren't required. We think it's great information to have, and we might want to have later on down the road. So, of course, business name. Today, we're going to call this DSC Partnership Test. And then choose your business structure. So this goes back to how you're registered. Are you registered with the Secretary of State as an LLC? Are you registered as a corporation? One of the things I see often is folks say, well, I'm an LLC, but I'm the only person in my LLC. So I'm a sole proprietor. A sole proprietor is actually someone who is operating the business, but is not registered with the Secretary of State in any way. So we would ask that your trade name get registered with your county recorder, and that actually protects your trade name, your business name from somebody else using it. But if you are a one-person LLC, you are an LLC, so we would identify you that way. You do have to give us the date that it started. So I started this business in January, and you'd be surprised because there's a lot of folks who have New Year's resolutions that do start their business in January. So I actually think that's kind of a fun time of year because I love the energy and I love to see what comes through. It's telling me that's invalid, of course. Let's see. We'll pick another date. There we go. And we do need a FEIN, Federal Employer ID number, or your Social Security number. Again, this goes back to how are you filing taxes for the business? Because when we do approve you, you actually get added to the state certification database for vendors. And the vendor database is checked against the IRS. And the IRS is going to come back and say that FEIN or that SSN does not match the business name that we have in our system. So whatever you're using to file your taxes, or maybe you just got a letter in the mail because you just started and the letter from the IRS said, here's your FEIN for your business, use that number. So we would want that number here, that is required. Now, the NAICS and NIGP codes that you might want to add to your profile are not required. In fact, you can come back and add those at any time. So I'm not going to add them because I don't know what mine are. You can search for them here as well. But again, those are things we don't have to go through your application for certification. Now it's going to tell you if anything is off. So if you didn't fill out a field, if something doesn't have the appropriate number of digits, it won't let you move forward. It will let you move forward with a save and let you move back to your prior page though, once you do move throughout the application. It won't let you jump to different tabs. So you do have to kind of go through each tab at a time. But if you're going back through your application and just making updates to it, you don't have to make any changes. You can just hit next with save until you get to the tab that you're looking for. So putting in my phone number, which we do need to have because it's required, in my email, address, county, this is a drop-down box. Website, if you have it, would be great. If you don't, it is not required. And the zip code. Now, we do like to know whether the business is a home address or not. Sometimes that helps us understand whether we need to verify if you hold insurance for the business or not. It also helps us to know, for example, this last year, when we were trying to identify which brick and mortar businesses were closed and affected by COVID because they literally couldn't have people in their doors, we actually went back through our database and looked at who had answered yes or no to this question. And that helped us kind of understand how many of the businesses that are certified are not able to have visitors into their place of business. So that's an important piece of information that is required, but it's not something that we would use to keep you from getting certified. This next step here is one that we often see, I think probably, I don't want to say the most confusion about, but I do want to note, we want you to add all and any owners, even if they're not targeted group persons, because what that allows us to do is just truly understand who is all a part of your business. So the way that you do that is to go through, click add owner, and it's going to give you a box where you can add the name of each owner and add their information. Why do we ask for social security number? This does go back to tax documents. On the tax documents, there is usually a place, whether you're filing an or 1120-S or your Schedule C, where we are going to check your tax information against what you've put here. And we want to make sure that the social security number matches up. Essentially, it's our way of verifying you are who you say you are, and the IRS recognizes who you say you are. So that's one of the pieces that they do require. We do like to know kind of your role with the business. And though not required, it's helpful for us to know the date you might have acquired ownership. If it's the same day the business started, what that tells us is the owner has been with the business since they started. If it's a later date, that usually says, oh, there may have been a sale or transfer of shares at some point where they added this owner, or the previous owner sold the business to another person. So we might want to know a little bit more about that. But in this case, I am the only owner, and I'm applying as a targeted small business as a woman. I'm going to go ahead and submit. But you can see we can add as many owners as needed, and they don't all have to be targeted group persons. So make sure that this total, when you're looking at the total list, list out everything that includes 100 or totals to 100. So moving forward, we also would want to know about your board members. Now, this really only applies to those that are LLCs or corporations. It really even more so corporations, because you actually technically have a board. But one of the things, that's helpful for us to know is, do you have people on your board who aren't targeted group persons, but who are helping advise you and helping to manage the business? It doesn't mean that you wouldn't qualify for being a TSB. It just means that we might say, how much is that person involved? How much are they advising you? And maybe it's one of your owners, and that's okay too. We also want to know what their role is. One of the things we really want to make sure of is that business owners who own their business, who are TSBs, are not just the owner, but they're also president. They hold the highest title, they're CEO, et cetera. So you're not putting somebody on your board who's actually kind of running the show, even though you're technically owning the business. We don't see that often, and we don't like to think that businesses are trying to do that behind the scenes, but just in case, we also want to maintain the integrity of the program, and so we do ask for this information as well. So right now I'm the only board member of my business, and I am the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And I'm sure many of you can relate, because you know what it's like to run a business and do everything, right? So same thing, you can add as many board members as needed before doing next with save. Now, this next piece isn't going to apply to everyone. When we talk about business licenses, you might be a consultant and there's no licensing that you have to have. However, if you're engaged in any type of industry that requires licensing from the state of Iowa, we would like to know if you or somebody else in your business holds that license. Again, we have really looked at the way that we certify businesses and kind of said, if it's a woman-owned business, and she owns, let's say, an electrical company, And she's hired people to do the electrical work. She's running things day to day. She's doing the quotes. She's doing the sales. She's talking to the people in the field, managing them. She's not actually doing the electrical work. She pays people to do that. That is okay. That's fine, because she is running and operating and managing the business. But we do want to know that the business is licensed to do electrical work if we're going to certify it. So we want to know everybody's name if you have to have a license to be in the industry that you're in. Same type of way, please just put in the name of folks who might, if they're employees, that's fine. They don't have to be owners, hold the license. So maybe you're not sure. Sometimes we have people who are starting out in business and they don't know. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of licenses in Iowa that you sometimes have to have, you wouldn't even know about. One of the really great benefits of our program and our team is that we have the Business License Information Center here. The individual who staffs that center is here in the office and available on phone to ask questions for when we're not sure if you need a license. So if you're not sure and we're not sure, just tell us what your service categories are. That's also what is going to show up in the directory when somebody search for you. They're going to see or be able to search by your service categories. So maybe you're doing agricultural, land, environmental planning, if that's a thing. I don't know if it is, but choose as many of these service categories as you want. It's a long list that you can type in here at the top to get you closer to maybe, let's see, I want to choose consulting. And so when we see your application, if you've added a service category and we think, okay, well, maybe they do need a certification, we might reach out to our contact at the Business License Information Center and ask, and then we might follow up and say, hey, have you looked into licensing? License may be required. I've had people who have come back, I'm trying to think of the one, I guess it was insurance, but it was a drone pilot. And typically we would say, if you're flying a drone, you need insurance. We got a huge education on drone insurance because people don't just carry drone insurance. It turns out you get drone insurance per flight that you do. So there are times that we'll come back and say, okay, we need this. And the business owner can say, well, actually in this industry, this is how it's done. So just know that sometimes we're just looking into it because we don't know, but we have some resources and we can engage with you if we need to find out if you do need a specific type of license or insurance. So service category is not required, but it's one of those things that we'll come back and ask you to fill out if you don't, just because it's going to be how you're going to be found in the database. We are at the last page before you have to submit your documents. So really, again, we went through that pretty quickly. I think it took longer for me to explain most of it than for us to fill it out. So these last questions are for us to get to know you a little bit better. How did you acquire your business? Did you purchase it? If it was purchased in the last 5 years, we might want to ask for that purchase agreement. But I started this on my own with my own funds. That is not shared information. So this is all just information that we asked so we can get to know a little bit about you. Did I take out a loan? I did not take out any loans. I received a small grant. So I will tell you, if I received a grant, it had to have been few and far between because there's not a lot of small business grants out there, but let's say I received a grant to get started. So that's helpful for us to know because we just want to know, did you borrow money from somebody else who's going to have a financial interest in your business? Is there somebody else who is not a targeted group person who would then be able to kind of direct how you're running your business because they essentially have a financial stake? We don't see that often, but we do kind of want to know. The question, though, about employees, including yourself, is important. I do have employees, and what that tells us is we will need to ask for workers' compensation insurance policy. We ask for that because it is an Iowa law that if you employ workers full-time and they're not contract workers, that you carry workers' comp. Again, if you're going to do business with any private entity, state entity, it's to your benefit to have that. Now, if you are contracting employees and had 1099 statements to indicate that they're contracted, that's fine too. We don't need workers' compensation insurance for that. Date of the most biennial report filed with the Secretary of State. Most people don't fill this one out, and that's okay because we can find it. So if you've been thinking about removing this field, because I can go to the Secretary of State's site and search this. The only time this is helpful, though, is when I can't find your business name. And sometimes people do business as a DBA. And so they've given us their DBA, but when I go to the Secretary of State site, I can't find them. So sometimes that helps us, because if you know you filed your biennial report, you're recognized by the Secretary of State, then we will search harder for you. Otherwise, plug to submit your biennial report, by the way, because they are required to stay in business with the state of Iowa. All right, so this last one, this is public. This is what goes in your profile as you become certified. We've had a lot of people who go back and want to update that, and that's fine. They kind of filled it out to just give us information about as they became certified, who they were. But then once they see their profile and say, well, that's like who I am, and that's how I wanted to represent myself to you as the reviewer, but this is how I want to represent myself to the public, we're happy to update that. But let's see, what did I say? I am an agricultural environmental planner. Okay. Last but not least, we do like to know if you've had any income. This goes back to that income piece. We want to make sure you're not above that $4 million threshold. I can usually see this in your taxes, but we do ask that as well. Okay, so we're now at the spot where you would upload some documents. And this is one of the pieces that I think sometimes we get a lot of questions on, because we do ask for 2 years of tax documents. Tax documents should be business documents if you've been in business for more than 2 years. And this page will walk you through what we need. We need at least the first 2 pages from your 1040 or your 1120S. And if you're filing a 1040, we need your Schedule C. If you're filing an 1120S, we need a Schedule K1 for each owner. What we see a lot, though, is that people miss this link, and this link is actually going to tell you the documents that we need for applicants dependent on their business structure. So we are going to need a copy of your driver's license. We are going to need verification that you're registered with the Secretary of State, or if you're a sole proprietor, that trade name registration. 2 years of tax returns. If you just started, send us the first 2 pages of your 1040. We are just verifying your name, you live in Iowa, and your social security number. If you have licenses, like we talked about, send us copies of those. If you purchase the business, send us a copy of the purchase agreement. If you need liability insurance because you sell products, attach that. Same with workers' comp. But I'll give you an example. If you are a consultant and you're a single member LLC and you've been in business for 2 years and you don't sell products and you work out of your home, we would need your driver's license, 2 years of taxes, and the signed and notarized affirmation statement, which I'm going to show you the link to next. That's all we would need from you. So it really is dependent on what business type you're in. And I think Christina sent some of that information out beforehand so everyone could review, or your structure of business. Now, if you're an LLC with more than one member, we do get into wanting to look at your operating agreement. The operating agreement is what tells us who does what in the business. If you have more than one business owner, are you sharing duties, or does one of you have the authority, like I said, at that 51% level to make decisions? Same with corporation. That's what your bylaws will tell us. Meeting minutes will also tell us, if you're a corporation, who the decision maker is. So who's the president, who's the CEO. You don't have to necessarily have a stock ledger, although that's always helpful if you're a corporation and you've had several transfer of shares. And like I said, bylaws are required actually by law if you're a corporation. Meeting minutes are helpful. And these are just things that as you are doing business, dependent on your business structure, hopefully you're doing. But that's also where we can help refer you to resources if you're not, or if you don't have these things, to help you understand how to create them. And then again, we have a various number of forms that you can submit to verify your targeted group person status, whether you're a woman or individual with minority status, service disabled veteran, individual with a disability. So there is a form that you can use to have your physician sign. We'll also accept verification from Department of the Blind, Department of Education, or Vogue Rehab as well. I also mentioned that there is a affirmation and authorization page. We do ask you to sign this and have it notarized. This is something you will have to download. There are becoming more and more digital notaries out there. So if you have ever wanted to try that out, now would be a time. The Secretary of State site is a great site to search to find digital notaries, and then you can have it done digitally and you don't even have to print it out, and then you can attach it. But everything does have to be attached here where you add documents. Again, it'll pull up a box here. You'll choose the file and you'll be able to upload that. I go ahead and upload my timeline and add a note. Oh, didn't add my note. I'm going to call this my tax document. It's very helpful if you tell us what year, by the way, your taxes were from. That's always good for us too. And upload that. When you believe you've uploaded everything that is required of you, you've looked through this list, you've signed your notary authorization and affirmation document. It's actually going to take you through another few steps before you submit. You can upload your logo at this time. You can also upload that capability statement I referred to. Neither of these are required. So you can come back and do it if you are just ready to be done. So go ahead to next with save. One thing to note is when you submit, it will lock your application. So you won't be able to come back in and work on it. Once we review it, you will be able to come back in. If we say, hey, we need a few more things for you, we actually move your application back to an in-process status so that you can come back in and work on it. But I'm going to go ahead and submit it at this time because I want to move on to kind of looking at the TSB bid portal, but just wanted to pause there for questions about the application process.
We'll just jump on and say that all the documentation, if you need to find it easily, was in the invite or on the event page for this event. So we had included all that information. So if you want to find it quickly in one spot that is available for you, the event is still up.
And again, feel free to reach out to us if you're wondering, why, or do I need to provide this? Do I need liability insurance for this, for my business? If you're not sure, sometimes we can help you determine what we would require for certification. At the end of the day, that's still a decision you make as a business owner, of course, but you can always ask us questions if you're in the middle of the application. We're never going to approve you without seeing your application. We're never going to say, oh yeah, that sounds like you'll probably get approved. You won't hear our staff say that, but we can at least kind of give you an idea of what we might be looking for. Okay, I'm not seeing any more chat. I did see the one somebody posted, but looks like they resolved that. So, okay. So I'm going to move, because I know we are short on time today. I am going to move over to the TSB bidding portal and talk a little bit about looking at state bids. I also want to kind of, again, talk a little bit about going back to that search page, how people are searching for you, how you can update your profile once you become certified so that you know what not just state buyers, but also private buyers are looking for when they use that search page. So first, starting with the 48-hour bid. So there's a couple options underneath here. We do have a bid page where every bid that a state buyer puts in automatically goes to this page for 48 hours in advance of it being posted to the public. So going back to those benefits that you have as a TSB, you get to see those state bids 2 days in advance of the public. And if they don't want to go through the bidding process, they can reach out directly to you for anything under $25,000. So that's something to know. They don't have to post a bid. If they want to work directly with the TSB, they can do that. What we find or what we hear they often might do is send out maybe 3 emails to TSBs and ask for like an informal quote. They'd still work with the TSB, but they want to kind of get quotes from 3, and it's a so much easier process. So sometimes people will say, well, I didn't even see that on the portal, and it's because they don't have to post it if they're working directly with somebody. So back to kind of what I said, cannot underscore enough the importance of building relationships with your procurement buyers. There's a place on the state website where you can see who all of those individuals are. Cirrus is really great about helping coaching people to make relationship and build relationship with those buyers too. But if you're just starting out and just kind of want to see what's out there, this page will allow you to search all of them unless you know NIGP codes and things of that nature. I tend to just kind of hit search and kind of go see what's in here. It takes a second because there's a lot, but it was, again, always interesting to know what the state is looking for. And what's nice is that you're going to get a little bit of a snippet, and then you're actually going to get a link to the actual bid on what's called bid opportunities, the state's real bidding site that's hidden for everybody else. For example, this project that was posted by the Department of Natural Resources for installing curb and gutter intake, this is going to require a bid proposal, and you need to contact, so it's an RFP for documents and information, but it gives you all the information you need, but then you can also open this link and you're going to get even more information, and sometimes there's more documents and attachments. Let's see if we can find one that has more attachments to it. Iowa PBS is looking for some replacement kits for a broadcast antenna. I couldn't even begin to know that language, but let's see. An expansion card, HD. I mean, there's just so much that goes out there. We'll find one where we've got some documents here. Well, let's go down. There we go. So there's usually some links or some extra documents that you have access to. Again, you're seeing this in advance of the public being able to see that. Now, we know that you're also busy and you do not have time to log in here every day to go search bids, as fascinating as it might be to see what the state buys. So we have added a couple different features. One is managing bid notifications, where you can set up yourself to receive notifications if they are tagged with a certain commodity code, that NIGP code that I talked about. Now, you would have to know which code would match yours, and we do have a link so you can see what those are. But, excuse me, what I would also advise is this requires the buyer to have tagged the applicant or the RFP or RFQ with that same code. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Again, we've been trying to advocate that they do that. So another way that we have tried to make sure that TSBs see bids, because you could put in a code here and say, I want to see all the bids that have this code, and then the buyer sends a bid out and they didn't tag it with anything. So even if it did kind of match that code, you wouldn't get an email. So what we ended up doing is creating a daily bid subscription. And so this is based upon the businesses you have. So it now has added DSM partnership tests to this list, which you won't see this tab until you get certified. But what you will see is that you have a business name and it is not yet signed up to receive bid summary emails. I do have to go in here and say, yes, I am interested in receiving state bid notifications, and I am interested in getting the email at the end of the day. The end of the day email is really just what you see here on this page. It's going to show you each bid posted the last 24 hours and a link, but it's nice. I've signed myself up, as you can see, to get it. So I'm always seeing it at the end of the day and keeping an eye out for things too. And it's a work in progress. We could use a little bit more formatting, I think, to make it a little prettier, but we're always just trying to push stuff out to make sure that you can get things sooner than later. So that's another feature. We continue to work with our partners at the Department of Administrative Services, who actually manage what's called Bid Ops, the bidding portal. A lot of our stuff is sent to us by them. So sometimes it's contingent upon what we can get from DAS, that the acronym for Department of Administrative Services. But our IT teams work closely, and we try to build out features when we can. And we tend to kind of connect quarterly to make sure everything's working correctly. So pausing there before I go into the search page and talk a little bit about, once you submit your application, how long before you would become a TSB and be listed here? Well, when I started, it was about a 30-day turnaround time. And that was because we were mailing out things, which I think, is one of those things we did because that's how we always did it. And then COVID hit and we realized we needed to get out responses sooner to people. And so we actually have switched to doing everything by email. So you no longer would receive a letter in the mail saying, we've reviewed your certification, or your application, here's what we need. You'll get an email from us. And now that we are doing the emailing back and forth and for the most part not mailing, we do accept applications by mail. The turnaround time is usually about 3 to 5 business days from when we receive your application to when you hear from us after it's been reviewed. Sometimes that goes up. It just depends on if people are on vacation. And we have in January, when we have a large number of applicants come through the door. But typically, if you were to send in an application on Monday, you would know by Friday if you could be certified or if we needed some more information. So the more that you read through all of that information, all of those documents, and send us what we need, the sooner you get certified. We have now expanded the queue of people who are working on the review team to 3. It used to be 1, used to be just myself, and now we have 3 people who are doing that. And it's been really, really nice because I still kind of look at the final applications before they go through approval. I don't know that that will always be the case, but it's been great because I get to know about a lot of the businesses, and so much so that a lot of people will introduce themselves to me and they'll tell me their name, and I'm not good with names, but I'll say, well, what's your business? And then I could tell them where they're located, what products they sell, do they have a website? I know business names. So pro tip, if you ever leave a voicemail, don't tell me your name, tell me your business name, and I'll usually know exactly who you are. But a lot of times I get voicemails and I'm like, what, who is that again? But I get to know businesses. And again, we like to speak off the cuff about our businesses in Iowa and just share your stories. So that is something I hope will never change. Even as much as we grow with this program, we are still looking to get to know you. That's why we take our time with the review process and we don't just, like I said, rubber stamp it. So once you do get certified, you are listed here in the directory. People can search for you by the business type. If they are looking for, like I said, specific types of information, they could do a search off of the keyword search that's in the product services description. That is something that can be updated at any time. One of the things to know is that it is very finicky about special characters. So if you do want to update your products and services list of what it is that you do, just let us know and we are happy to go in and make updates for you if we need to add a period instead of a comma, looks like with this one perhaps. Because we do have that kind of set so that you can't go in and add weird characters, because it will actually close down the entire search for all the businesses. So I've gotten calls at like 5 o'clock on a Friday saying, hey, I'm searching the database and it's not working at all. And that has honestly led to us going through and trying to find a needle in a haystack, what ended up being an ampersand that had been included in a services description, which for our standards, I'm sure for all of us, is not a funky character, but our database for whatever reason thought it was. So we're kind of protective about that. If you do want to update your business description, that's fine. We will use and instead of the ampersand character. But the other thing to know is once you become a TSB, you can go back in here at any time and make other updates to that business profile. So you can go and make updates to your NAICS codes, as I said, NIGP codes, service categories, capability statement, logo, etc. The only other thing you can't do is update your address, because we would want to know if you moved out of state, given that that's one of the requirements of the application and the program itself. So we don't allow you to do that, but if you do move, just let us know. We can update that for you too. All right, pausing there for any questions related to the application, the process, the turnaround time, the profiles, etc. think we have covered a lot of ground today. So I am always happy to answer questions. We're always happy to talk about any of the things related to the application. The last piece what we wanted to cover today was about the loan program, just so that you know that it's out there and kind of the process that goes along with it. But again, if there's any questions at any point about the application, the search page, you're certified and you want to update it or you want to become certified, please just reach out and let us know. So I'm going to go back to our main page here, TSB Cert at iowaeda.com. Oops, I guess it's iowaeda.com/TSB. There we go. Even I'm getting to the end of the day here. So as I mentioned before, when you come to this page and you want to learn about the targeted small business loans versus the certification, you'll want to click here to be taken to our loan page. This page will give you information about what the loans are available for. You do have to be eligible to be a TSB. Now, you don't have to be certified to be a TSB, just have to be eligible. And the reason we have made it that way is so that if you're just getting started, remember I said you can't be certified if you're not in business, but if you need the loan to get started, you can get a loan prior to being certified. Now, we're probably going to lean heavily to say, hey, you got a TSB loan. Now that you're in business, you should get certified too. We'd love to make sure that you get certified after you get in business. But if you're just getting started out, you can apply for a loan. Loans can be used for improvements to the business, expenses, purchase of equipment, furnishings, inventory, and specific operating expenses. But they cannot be used for the purchase of investing in real estate or purchase of real estate. They can't be used to loan money out to other people, and they can't be used to pay debt. So that's something that, we know coming out of COVID, there's still a lot of the trying to get the traction to get the business off the ground is out there. So we want to make sure the loans are going toward business growth, not necessarily any debt payments. So you do have to have been in Iowa for at least 6 months. We do require that you be an Iowa resident, at least 18 years of age, and obviously intend to own the business where the funds are being used, have all those same qualifications as you do for a TSB certification. Again, there are some other additional requirements, like not being able to use this to pay off debt or use it to lend money. But generally, the best way to know if you're ready or eligible for a loan is to look at the list of required documents. So these are the list of documents that will be required as a part of the loan process. So this again gets into a little bit about who you are, structure of your business, how many borrowers or owners of the business there are. But generally, we're always going to need your ID, your tax returns, bank statements, and a utility statement. When I say utility statement, a statement where we can verify your address. That can be a loan or a statement from a bank, it can be a statement from a cell phone provider. We just need to verify your address. But I think utility statement is one of those holdovers from back in the day when we all had utility statements. So you also have to possibly have your previous year's W-2. If you have other income, we need proof of that. Recent pay stubs if you're working. If you receive income from a rental, we might want to see that too. Now, if you're the only applicant, that's kind of where we start. If you have co-borrowers or even co-signers, it's kind of the same list for them as well. So keep that in mind. In addition, we'd also need a few things for the business. So if you're just getting started, you're going to want some financial projections, a startup budget, bank statements. Even if you've just gotten started and your bank statement is showing zero profit, zero revenue, that's fine. But just something that shows that you've really established and set up the business, because if we are infusing the business with the loan amount, we want to know kind of that you have a plan for where that's going. For sole proprietors, LLCs, and corporations, kind of the same things apply as it does for the certification. Operating agreement if there's more than one member manager with the LLC. Trade name registration if you're a sole proprietor and not registered with the state, get that trade name registration instead. Company bylaws for corporations. So these are all kind of dependent on your business structure. If you're an existing business though, there's a little bit different requirements. And down here in really tiny print, it does say, if you're unfamiliar with these documents or you don't know what they are, you don't have, or maybe you had a business plan and it's just out of date and you need to update it. That is okay. Let us know. We are here with the TSB loan and in the business of trying to help you get to a yes. That might mean coordinating a resource for you first before you get there, before you start the application. But that's again, the relationship that we want to build with you is to get to know you and your needs and how to connect you to the resource that you might need. So what we do is actually ask you to fill out a pre-application loan questionnaire and send this to us. So review that list of required documents and then fill out this loan questionnaire and send it our way. What we're going to do is within about 3 to 5 days, we are hopefully on the 3-day end, but I tell you what, we are since even launching the new loan program with IEDA, we've got a lot of inquiries about it, but we will be reaching out to you and connecting with you just to understand your needs, where you're at in the process. Again, do you need resources to get the business plan put together, to create your P&L, your profit and loss statement? And it is okay if you do. We are here to help connect you. Back to what I said in the beginning, a lot of our work is connecting you to those resource partners who can help you with that. We're going to create a profile with your information in it so that once you get all of that done and come back to us, we'll start the loan application from there. But we definitely want you to have all of that ready before you start into the loan application, because I promise you it takes just so much less time if you have that all at the get-go than trying to do that along the way. And then I think it just creates less frustration and also tends to create more success for you in your business. So those are the pieces that we just ask you to start a conversation with us about. Tell us where you're at in terms of getting started and off the ground. And after looking at that required documents list, if you need some assistance with those required documents, that is totally fine. We'll connect you to the people like Christina or our SBDCs or Evelyn K. Davis and Curtis at the Master Business Bootcamp. We'll connect you to resources who can help. So that too is again something to consider if you're in business and want to scale. If you have started thinking about, hey, I offer this product, but I'd really love to scale it so I can offer it to nationwide grocery chains, for example. If you have a food product, think about this loan. Maybe that's something that can help you get there. Maybe it's that you just need some more cash flow. You've been doing business for a while and it would just make things a little bit more comfortable to have a bit more cash flow just as you're operating or to have those reserves. So it doesn't have to just be for starting out. And if you're in business, but you want to, again, kind of look into the loan program, we don't need quite as extensive as a business plan, but we would want to see maybe an updated one, could be even just one page, but a little bit different qualifications if you're in business applying for the loan. But we're, again, happy to work with you or help connect you to resources if you have been, we know a lot of people doing businesses from their phones because quite honestly, we can these days, right? So sometimes we might ask for a little bit more information, but we'll get you there if you need that help. Okay, I am getting close to time here and want to leave time for questions too. Any questions on anything we've covered, loans, certification, supplier diversity, application, etc.?
You can feel free to unmute if you have a question, or if you feel more comfortable dropping it down in the chat, that's completely fine. I can ask that for you. Jill, if somebody has a TSB loan and they're beginning to pay it off, are they able to apply for more money? Typically, it's one loan at a time. But, I would say just reach out to us and talk to us about kind of what you're wanting to do. There's sometimes other resources we can direct you to. And thank you for beginning to pay it off. That's always good too. That's one of the pieces that won't change. Those payments still go to IEDA. One question I was going to ask Jill is, because I had somebody ask that could not be here, but it's going to watch the recording, so I want to make sure I ask the question they asked. You did go through the database of what the state is currently buying. What do you feel like they're buying the most of? Services, products? You mentioned the prison example. Do you have any idea what they're buying the most of? That's a good question, but I'm going to pull this up since we're live. This is literally how I find it. Oops, not my email.
what does the state buy? What goods and services does the state of Iowa buy? So you can go to commodity code and take a look. Insurance turns out tops the list. Data processing, computer programming, then construction services, financial services, computer hardware, but it goes all the way down. I mean, this is a very, I would say, consolidated list. Actually, I've seen the full list. This is the consolidated version. Art objects are in there. Personal hygiene and grooming, because you think, again, we have prison facilities with women and men who need personal grooming. Janitorial supplies, and just anything you can think of, machinery, hospital and surgical equipment, et cetera. I mean, it's all there. So definitely study this list. What it's not going to tell you is who buys what. That's why I think attending those monthly webinars where we talk to individual agencies and get a little bit more awareness about what they buy is really helpful, because you can learn a lot from that.
Other questions? If not, we are recording this session today. We had quite a few people sign up that wanted the recording, but also it's a lot of information that we just gave to you in 90 minutes. So you will be able to go back and watch the recording. We'll have it ready here in just a couple days. We do edit it down just a little bit. So we will get that out to you, but I do want to make a quick kind of announcement about the next sessions. I did drop the link in if you would like to register. The next sessions is going to selling to the federal government. So the federal government buys a ton, and our first speaker that we had, a couple of them work directly with the federal government on contracts. And so Donnell Conley with the SBA will be here talking about how to do work with the federal government, who is just like the state of Iowa, sets money aside to be spent with TSB. So that will be taking place not next week, but the 23rd on Thursday. So if you'd like to register for that, we will be virtual and it will be recorded again. So if you can't join us in the morning, we'll make sure to have that out. Any closing thoughts, Jill?
I would just say, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us with questions. We are here to help and connect you to resources. Donnell and I know each other well. Christina and I know each other. We all connect. We all kind of generally talk. We don't share confidential information, of course, but we all know each other's programs and can direct you to the resource that's right for you if it's not us. We're always happy to do that. So I think that's something that what's great about Iowa is the access that you get with any of us is pretty incredible. You can reach out at any time and we're here to help.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here today. We look forward to seeing you at the next session.